All right. Welcome. I am going to introduce Linda Wendling. Linda has organized this Earth Law event, and we'll make an introduction or two.
Yes, first thing, I have to express my deep appreciation to Dean Crowell for hosting us, his entire law school team. You know, it takes a village to put a conference together, a session together. So they've been the most generous and kind. So this law school really has over and above for us, and I'm deeply grateful for that. And this is a space for our discussion. We're hoping that this is a lot of good interactive dialogue, because that's what's going to heal the world, is connection and relationship. Briefly introducing myself, I am a devoted volunteer for the Earth Law Center. They caught my attention a couple years ago when I just minor helped with the editing of the Earth Law textbook, and then Grant Wilson, our executive director, put out a call for retired, semi-retired, or just enthusiastic, and neither of those things. Legacy Fellowship in Durango, and I spent the majority of the month of May completely immersed in researching, analyzing, and looking at the world from the Earth Law perspective, and it has moved me deeply. And then third, what is Earth Law? We're asking, what if the legal system represented all life on the planet? We are all part of the life on planet. And then why rivers? Because rivers really were, or are, the cradles of civilization. I remember learning how to spell Mesopotamia in 5th grade, because that's where the Tigris and Euphrates came together, cradling civilization, and that's what rivers do. They embrace life. There is no life without our rivers. So this afternoon is going to be spent delving deeper into this concept, and we're going to explore some key examples and have wonderful different kinds of multimedia presentations. It's just going to, I hope it's very enriching. For the man who doesn't like to do introductions, I'm not going to do an introduction. Tony, introduce yourself. I'm so excited that everybody is getting some extra treats. Please get your extra treats and sit down so we can do some report outs. That is not to rush you. That is just to let you know, please make sure that you eat all of the generosity. What I wanted to do, actually, I was hovering. Many of you noticed that I was hovering or eavesdropping or intruding. Pick your level of aggression of how I was approaching your table. But what I really found, you all have talked about a different river. You've all talked about different relationships. You've all talked about different theories. I heard imprisonment of a river over at this table. So everything has been very, very different, but there has been one word that has been said repeatedly at every single table, and it's the word connected and to be in relationship with. That has been every single person that I have heard speak say this. And you've talked about the connections on completely different scales. I have heard microbes being in community inside of our bodies that make us up. We have our own communities that we walk around with. And then we have the communities that tie ourselves to the cosmic. And that's something that Will had pointed out with his hyper beings. So we have from the great to the tiny, but it's all in relationship. And there's different scales of ecosystems that you all were talking about, from tiny little springs where I grew up. We could go take a jug and get fresh water from a spring. Tiny little Pequest River in New Jersey. It's silly, ridiculously small, to giant rivers that are well known. And we talked about connection to nature. I have to bring this up because Macy was so perfect. We have the bird politics on the Thames, that she listened to the birds being connected to each other and having their morning conversations. And so that was perfect. But she also said, those who are disconnected, the ones who use the river as a view from their lounge chair, they're not connected to it. And all of the negativity comes out of being disconnected. I think I heard about, river water will flow and it feeds and irrigates fields. And then they take those crops and they disconnect them from the ecology that they came from. They are packaged somewhere and they are possibly shipped halfway around the world. I've heard about fear. We're disconnected from the river. We can't drink it anymore. But like as kids, maybe we did. So it is all of these connections. And really, law is a connection. It connects society, it connects each other, it connects our expectations of each other. I'm thinking of Una, when you talked about coming up and out and using EU law for a dam in the local community. So there's different scales of law that we can talk about and those kinds of structures. But the connection, I think, that makes the most sense and what I've heard that is most emotional is how do we connect to each other as stewards who are the connecting bridge between the generations of life on Earth. We are the connection that will keep life going. I'm, getting a little goosebumpy thinking of my children. I'm sure you all are thinking of your children and your grandchildren, and that's why you want to stay connected as a steward. And I was hearing in the back table, I will apologize to my Italian colleague who was talking about how he grew up with the river in Italy. And that's the youth need to grow up in connection with the river so that they will always protect it because it is part of what makes them, because it's their own personal history. We've talked about guardianship. How do you know that they're in a relationship? We assume that Indigenous peoples are in relationship, but is that true? How do we know we wouldn't be just as good guardians? I think I was kind of overhearing that. I think possibly over at Grant's table. I was hovering, but I wanted to let you all know that while you are at separate tables and you were talking about completely different ecosystems, you all had the connection of the same thought. And I am deeply appreciative of you sharing that connection with us. So I would like to start the report outs if I can. I would love to start talking about bird gossip. If I could start at this table and then we'll just kind of move back and then front, and then Tony will come back up to give his quick wrap up. And we have two people chatting that we want to make sure we include them in their stories.